All right, so 7.3% proportion. So we've been, on our last lesson, we talked about percents, fractions, decimals. We learned that percent is always out of
100.
100. Good. And so let's think about this kind of from a different perspective. Can you tell me what is 50% of 40? Great, because 50% is what fraction? Half. Now, have we talked in here that the of typically means to do something? Multiply. So half of 40, 0.5 times 40, or half of 40, 1/2 times 40, so we'd get 20. Well, what if I reverse? So this question would be, what is 50% of 40? Well, what if the question instead was, what percent of 40 is 20?
50%.
50%, right? So because, how do we know that? Because we did the first one? Yeah, but what if we didn't do the first one? What if I just said, what percent of 40 is 20? Avery. Half of 20 is 40. I mean, half of 40 is 20. And we know half is really 50% when we convert. Okay, so would you say that this is true? 20 over 40 is equal to 50 over 100?
Yes.
Because we use, that's like got the answer in it. In last night's homework, we might have taken a fraction and converted it to its percent. Well, there's something called a percent proportion, that's what the title of the lesson is, that helps us place these in the right spot of a proportion as a way to solve it. And I want you to go back to, if you haven't written this question, write this one down, and go back up to it, and I want you to notice that the number 20 has the word is connected to it. The number 40 has the word of. And then we're talking about a percent right there. So the percent was 50% of 40 is 20. So what's the whole, the big part? Do you know what I mean by that?
40.
40. And so then the 20 is the part of the whole, right? The 20 is the portion of the whole. Well, and so I had you point out this is and this of. Well, the 20 was connected to the word is. The 40, that's the of, which is the of is like your whole portion. Is your part of the whole. And then we had our percent, and then we have the number 100. Well, that's kind of the framework of, that'll be true for all of these types of questions where you've got, either you've got the percent and you want to know what was the whole. I know that this is 25% of something. What did it start out as? So I can go, I can have any of these things missing. And so here's what I want you to write down. The is in the numerator over the of. The part over the whole, is over of, equals our percent over 100. And that's this percent proportion that the title of the lesson is. And so I'm going to show you how to use that. And I think, Lydia, can you see on our Math Savers, is that one of the Math Savers?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. First one. Okay, so third one?
Yeah.
Okay, so is over of equals percent over 100. So let's try that with a different question. Let's say 12 is what percent of 32? Now, before we solve it with our percent proportion, do you know what it is?
No.
It's harder to figure it out, right? Because 12 doesn't go into 32 evenly. So that's why this percent proportion is helpful. So which one is the is and which one's the of? Timothy.
The 12 is the is and the of is the 32.
Good. 12 is. So that's the part of the whole. So if we put it in that proportion, 12 out of 32 is what percent? Do you see how you kind of did that in, actually one of you asked a homework question, that 80 out of 90 from last night's homework, remember? They got like 80 out of 90 correct, and you had to change it to a percent. That's kind of, isn't that the same thing? If this were a quiz and I said, okay, 12 is what you made out of 32 points, what percent is that? It's going to be low, isn't it? Okay, but so that's 12 is what percent of 32? If you got a 12 out of 32, you could use this to find your percent. We're going to use cross products. Again, that's why we used them last time. Okay, so let's do cross products. So we'd have 32x is equal to 1200. And then what do we do to both sides? Divide by 32. Okay, so do that division and see what you get. Did you get 37.5? You're getting close. Or you could do 37.5. So there's our percent. 12 is 37.5% of 32. Does that sound reasonable? If we kind of just logically thought about it? Because what's half of 32? 16 would be the 50%, so it should be below 50 because we only had 12. Make sense? Okay, let's try another one. You guys try this one. What percent of 5 is 12? And for your notes, I'd like you to write the question. In your homework, you can just go ahead and write your percent proportion. Okay, you don't have to copy the question. But for notes, copy the question, and then I want you to circle your number that goes with the of and your number that goes with the is. Just in the notes, it's fine.
Is this what all the questions are?
Yeah, really most of them will. We'll have a few word problems where it's not as straightforward, like in one sentence, and you have to pick out which one's the is and the of. Okay, so to make sure we're on the right track, what's the 5? Does anybody know, is or of? It's the of. And now notice the of and the is are on both sides of the 5. But if I said the 5 was the is, then you 12 can't go to anything. So 5 is your of, is 12. And then again, we don't know the percent. So put it in your is over of equals percent over 100. Sebastian, set it up for me. What's the proportion?
12 over 5.
Equals,
Oh, that's what
good. Now, based on this, before you even solve it, is this going to be, what type of percent is this going to be? High. Over 100. Because 12 is more than 5. And that's okay. We can get percents that are higher than 100. Bryce? Oh,
If the of is more, or if the is more than the of to the above 100.
That's right.
If the of is
bigger.
than the is.
It'll be less than 100. Okay, Bryce, what do you get when you do cross products here?
You do 5x equals 120 or 1,200.
Okay. Good. And then what? Oh, you're not there yet?
I said,
That's okay. All right, James?
When you divide this by 5,
Good.
then you get 240%.
Very good. And we know it's a percent because we were looking for that percent. The x was over the 100. Okay, let me switch it up a little bit. Still the same type of question. It's going to have there is and your of, but let's do this. What number is 80% of 125? So write your question for your notes, and then let's identify what's been given. What's the 125? The of. Okay, so let's circle it with our of. What's the 80? It says is in front of it,
But it's the percent.
but
The
it's a
number is
percent.
the end.
Okay, good. It says 80%. So the 80 has to be our percent. It can't be an is or an of. So 80%. And then what number is, that means we're missing the is.
So then we're solving for the is.
Correct. What number is? So x for the is. 80%, 80 over 100 of 125, so the 125 goes on the bottom. And then let's use our cross products. I wasn't going to let you. But would you like to?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you. It's good to have practice with calculators. If you never use them, you don't know how to use them when you can. Agree fully? You agree fully? Yes. But you still, does that mean you would just have an answer?
No.
No, you'd set up your proportion. I want to see, like on this one, I would want to see 100x equals, and then, but you could type in your calculator, 80 times 125. And what'd you get? 10,000. So you wouldn't have to show that multiplication, but then you show me what you're going to do to both sides.
But what if you just cross out the zeros?
Yeah, but show me that you're putting divided by 100, and then you could cross out these zeros. So what's the is? 100. So 100 is 80% of 125. Does that make sense? Yeah, if you think about it, that makes sense. Okay, let's try this one. 78 is 60% of what number? 78 is 60% of what number? Yeah, if you have your calculator, we'll use them here in our notes. So, before we get started though, let's circle the parts like 78. What's that one going to be? 78 is. What's the 60? That's your percent. It's attached to the percent sign. It has to be the percent. So then we're looking for the of what number? Okay, so you put it in your percent proportion. So, Max Telfer, what would the proportion look like?
Would it be 78 over x and 60 over 100?
Very good. And then we'll do our cross products. 60x equals 7,800. So the part I'm writing on the board is the part you should write, but then you can type in, you should be able to multiply by the in your head, but the division, you could cross out a 0. And who's got it? Mason? 130. So that's our of. Let's think about it. This is a good, like, have you noticed every time I've been asking you, does this make sense? Do that just to see if what you get is even close. Because if it's not, you put something in the wrong place. So 78 is 60% of 130. Does that sound about right? Because what would 50% of 130 be? 65, and this is a little bit higher. This is 78. So, makes sense. Okay, you think you get the idea of these sentences, how to find your is, how to find your of? Okay, so let's use that idea. Turn to page 347, and let's try a word problem. Page 347, we're going to look at number 21. Okay, it's the very last problem on the page.
21.
Number 21. And do I have someone that would read it? Haley.
The number of wine-flavored gumballs in a gumball machine is 85. If this is 17% of the number of gumballs in the machine, how many gumballs are in the machine?
Okay, thank you. Do I have a volunteer to read it again? And while it's being read, I want you to see if you can figure out the numbers that are given. Are they the is, the of, the percent? What would they be? Okay, Mason.
Alright. So the number of wine flavored gumballs in the machine is 85.
So what do you think the 85 is?
That's is.
It says is 85. Okay, so we can go ahead and put, where would the 85 go?
Top.
On top. Okay, keep reading.
If this is 17% of the gumballs, that should be on the right.
So 7, and it said is 17%. So 17 is, why isn't the is?
Because it's a percent.
It's the percent. Good. Over 100, and then it said how many gumballs are in the machine. Do you see how that's your total, your of, your whole? So there's your X. So let's do cross products. See what you get. Okay, Max Deloach, what'd you get? 500. Good. So, I'm letting you use a calculator on your homework, but don't just write the proportion and then put this. Do you see how I'm missing? I want to see the steps. But you can type in your multiplying and dividing. Savannah? Stretching? Okay. All right. Any questions? So to summarize, what's the percent proportion that we use?
Cross products.
We use cross products to solve it, but what's the part we need to have memorized?
Is
Is over of equals percent over 100. When do we use that?
all the time.
For every problem? No. What type of problem would you read it and you'd say, oh yeah, I can use that percent proportion? When you see percent of a number, you see the words is, of, percents. Anytime you see that kind of thing.
On like your homework quiz or whatever, and you see how many total points, and you screen and you see like what you got, your points scribbled out, and you see like your percent, you could find out.
Okay, so yes, I could say, let's actually do this quick problem. This will be our last one. Let's say I gave you a quiz back, okay? And your quiz score was, let's say you made a 95%. Okay, you did awesome. And you knew that the quiz counted for, and I'm making this one up, so we'll just have to, we'll say it counted for 60 points of your skills grade. Okay? I want you to figure out what you scored. How many points did you get out of the 60 if you got a 95%?
That's geometry, okay?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, it's, yeah. It is. Not, what'd you say? Geometry. Okay, I haven't worked it out yet. So how about Savannah? What did you get?
57 points.
You think 57? 57? Okay. Before we check it, does that make sense that 57 out of 60 sounds like it's probably 95%?
Yes.
Okay, so let's check it in. So how did you set it up, Savannah?
So I did X and then 60 on the bottom.
Okay, good. Because you knew the total points, that's your of. You didn't know how many you got right. You just knew you got a 95%. So then we do 95 times 60, divide by 100, and X would be 57 points. Very good. Timothy, thank you for that idea. That was a good one. All right, that's it for notes. And I'm going to